Hey everyone. So I think I've figured out what a good series to start on this channel would be. And I'll call it Dumb Shit Natalists Say. Because whenever I'm on Reddit or even on YouTube looking through antinatalist content or even anti-natalist content, because it's just, yeah, you can call them natalist, yes, but they're anti-natalist as well, right? And I'll see some of the most dumbest comments, just the most strawman versions of antinatalism that I've come across so far. Almost like it's a projection. And I'll respond to this one comment. I'll basically just paraphrase it. And they essentially said that antinatalists think life should be done away with simply because they can't find any meaning of their own, right? Antinatalists can't admit that they're the ones who failed in this life. And so their precepts about human suffering and misery are essentially excuses. Yeah, that's pretty much what he said. Essentially, antinatalists are making excuses for not being on the Sigma male grind set, essentially, right? Something to that tone. And for me, like, as much as I've only seen some few videos about David Benatar, I do want to get his book. I do want to buy it. I do want to read it, right? So that I'm not just talking out of my ass. But in any case, the asymmetrical argument for pain versus pleasure, I think it gives people too much leeway to define these terms however they see fit. And hence, they can just brush it off because they can portray pain as like scraping your knee or like, I don't know, breaking a glass window or something, just things to bring you shame or pain kind of thing, right? But I'd rather go with exploitation, right? Because pain and pleasure they're on a spectrum, yes, but so is exploitation, right? Is it on a spectrum really, or is it just like a vicious cycle kind of thing? Like if you're born in a low income house or like you're born in poverty, basically, you are the most exploited individuals in society, essentially. And you have to find a way to get some socio-economic mobility. And how do you do that if not by exploiting other people, for example? How do you do that without ending up like, a rags to riches story to me is nothing except you learning how best to exploit other people the way you were exploited. And it seems so crazy to me that natalists will try and strawman antinatalists into just being like whiny crybabies or something. And yet we have the data to back our points up, right? It's not just, we don't have to ramble on about these sort of ambivalent terms like pain and pleasure. No, let's talk about human exploitation. Let's talk about human trafficking, right? I'll even pull some numbers up and I'll probably link it as well so you can see it yourself. Right now, like, yeah, right now, there's an estimated 40.3 million 40.3 million victims of human trafficking who are trapped in modern day slavery. If you break down the genders, 71% are women and girls, 29% are men and boys. But here's the thing. When you break it up by age, 25%, or basically 10 million of those enslaved people are children. There's literally tens of millions of children going through slavery. 21% of victims of sexual exploitation were children. 37% of victims trafficked in forced marriages were children. 16 million forced labor victims work in domestic work, construction, and agriculture. Just take that number as an example. 10 million children right this second are slaves on this planet. Children. Does it not click in the mind of a natalist that, hey, your child is incredibly susceptible to being kidnapped and trafficked? You know, you always want to believe you are the protagonist. Your surroundings are impenetrable. But the reality is, you have to expect the worst outcomes for your children. You have to. You can fight against them, but you can't walk around pretending like you don't see these risks. How many of those parents sold their children into slavery? I don't know. How many of them were just straight up stolen from parents? I think if we focus the conversation on human exploitation rather than just pain versus pleasure, I think it grounds people more into the reality of what we're around. You think you're covered in some like impenetrable shield, or you or your child will be covered in some impenetrable shield? I wouldn't. Okay. This isn't to say every single child gets kidnapped, of course. That doesn't mean you shouldn't prepare for a situation like that, or prepare to defend in case of a situation like that. You put your child in a fucking war zone. You put a child in a fucking war zone. As much as I feel terrible for people fleeing war, I honestly have to fucking wonder. It's not like you didn't know the war was going on, but you still had time to fuck and get pregnant? Is like, do humans just get do humans reproduce out of fear? Is that what it is? I'm genuinely curious because what would make you think that having a child, like, how the fuck would you even get in the mood for that kind of thing under those circumstances? It's all well and good to say, oh yeah, antenatal. So if it was an orphan or somebody who was a victim of the human trafficking and exploitation who came out and said he's an antinatalist, would they have the same response? Would they say, oh, you just your life didn't amount to anything, or like you gotta find meaning in different ways, or like what the fuck would they come up with when actually faced with somebody who's endured that level of. And in fact, there's a lot of people in the antinatalism sphere who have endured that level of trauma, like unspeakable kinds of trauma. But you know what they do? Double down, continue the shaming tactics, just brush it off, essentially. This is the people that you're reasoning with. And it's unfortunate, but I really do believe antinatalism is going to continue being somewhat of a fringe movement, even if people subconsciously agree with a lot of the tenets of antinatalism. It's going to continue being a fringe movement because it causes such a knee-jerk reaction in people's programming. We are in a time where everything is just circling back. And I think child labor, even in the West, is going to become common again. You can see it in fact, you can see it on social media. This, wasn't there that kid who, in fact, he's on YouTube, isn't he? Yeah, the kid who was like one of the highest earning, or was the highest paid YouTuber. Was it last year or the year before? Well, he was one of the highest paid YouTubers on the planet. Is a child. Of course, it's not a child, right? His parents own the channel and everything, but he reviews toys. That's what he does. And he's like, I don't even think he's above 10. How does that not count as child labor? Oh yeah, it's just fun, it's just playing with toys. It's not, you're overreacting. Does this kid know the ramifications of having his face online? You want to talk about consent, but does this kid know that ramifications of having his face online, on social media, having such a huge breach? It's going to become, we're literally circling back to the fucking pre-industrial age or something. And we see this happening. Like, how the hell can you, as a natalist, look at the same exact exploitation and barbaric bullshit that humans are doing to one another, even children, and you will tell the antinatalist you're just negative? We're just negative? In fact, in that report, in some places, it showed a percentage of like who gets trafficked where the most. In some places, so let's say like 82% of victims of human trafficking are in like North Africa or something, or parts of North Africa. In some places, it's 100% children who are being trafficked. I think West Africa, parts of West Africa. 100% of the people being trafficked are children. Don't you think it would have been better to not have that child endure such a horrible fate? I mean, yeah, fine. We can say, yeah, they're already born, so we just gotta fight the power, man. Like, oh, it does get exhausting. It really does get exhausting because people just want to have a reason to complain. They want to have a reason they want to have a reason to look to feel superior over other people, even when you know they're right. This isn't to say that I give a shit about whether you have kids or not. This is more to say that whatever you think is wrong in this world, having a kid will never fix it and will only amplify their problems and your problems. As long as you can admit that you're doing it for selfish reasons, it's up to you. Obviously your genes are more, not even, how would I say it? Your life has so much more drive and purpose than antinatalists that you see it fit to reproduce a child. To do what exactly? Continue your legacy? To go fucking ice skating or something? And it's funny because once that child hits 18, all of a sudden a whole world of bullshit drops onto them. And some of them realize it, most of them don't until they get into their late 20s. And it's just an overwhelming shitstorm of keeping up with your bills, wages that keep dropping, assuming you don't have any health issues, right? A whole host of just stress and anguish. For what end? Like, I sound a bit scattered right now just because I'm trying to figure out exactly how do you process things like this? How do you look? I mean, we were all there once. If you're an antenatal, you were definitely there once. You thought, yeah, I'm gonna have a child, and we're gonna do this, and he's gonna be my mini-me and all this kind of stuff, and we're gonna do all the family things. We're gonna learn how to play catch and all that. But the moment you start realizing what life is, like, I don't know if you've ever volunteered, if anyone who's listening has ever volunteered in like a special needs children's orphanage or just a center. You should. Especially if you're a natalist, you absolutely should. Even if you're not, anyone should, everyone should. You go look at the state of those children, knowing that the polite society looks at them as less than animal, less than filth, but they pretend to care and be compassionate about them. And just imagine if that was you. Would you even have the capacity to ask your parents why they did that to you? I really hope one, like, antinatalism is pushing through gradually, and I'm glad it is, because you can't keep pushing forward this psychotic control system. You can't. It's like people just want to wake up to complain about it every single fucking day and do nothing truly constructive to halt the system. To be honest, if we all just decided to literally lie down, if we all collectively just decided to lie down in the morning and just not even just get to work an hour late, if we all just decided to get to work an hour late, the economy would fucking shit itself. Like, for real. If even 1 million people did that, 2 million, the economy would fucking shit itself. We have that kind of power. But we'd rather just chase some idealized version of freedom at the expense of our own children. I hope the next video I make is going to be a little more... I might start writing scripts, but I don't like writing scripts. I usually just... Like, every single video I've made has just been off-head, so I'll try and be more coherent. Like, I do kind of cringe sometimes when I listen back to these videos, but I hope you can get a bit of knowledge or a bit of perspective from this. So thanks for listening.